The gist of Proposition 17 is it's a change in the ability of people that are on state parole to allow them to vote. So right now, people that are on state parole are not allowed to vote, to register to vote, and therefore they're not allowed to vote and they're not allowed to hold elective office. So Proposition 17.
State parole as opposed to like a county probation?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So right now, the number of people in California that are on state parole is about 50,000. So this is potentially, 50,000 new voters. Now, obviously, of course, once they've completed their parole sentence, if you will, they are allowed to register to vote after that. This would just allow them to do it sooner. So my initial thoughts on this is that I'm going to be voting yes on this because I think that it helps with rehabilitation. It helps with getting people back integrated, as a part of society. And I think that that's a good thing. And I think that there's some good evidence that actually is going to happen. So not too long ago, the state of Florida Department of Corrections did a study on recidivism and voting right and the reinstatement of voting rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so between 2009 and 2011, so over a 3-year period, the state of Florida had about a 26% recidivism rate. So essentially 26% of people who came out of prison would end up getting arrested and re-imprisoned. I believe in a 3-year period. I think that's the window. So 26% overall. For people who got their voting rights reinstated, it was only 4.5% of them that ended up committing crimes and getting caught and prosecuted again. So it's a correlation. It's not a causation. But I think that there's a strong argument to be made that the more people feel connected to society, the less likely they are to commit crimes against that society. So if we looked at a similar reduction in so it was interesting too that I found out that the recidivism rate in California is actually hovers right around 50% every year, which I was kind of blown away.
Within a 1-year window?
Within 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So
3-year window.
Of the people that leave, so if you commit a crime within 3 years, that's considered recidivism.
Mm-hmm.
If you commit a crime later, I don't believe it is. I think it's just you've committed another crime.
Mm-hmm.
50% of people that get out of prison end up back in prison, which is pretty. I mean, that's pretty sad, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But so out of those 50,000 people that are in parole, if we were to see a similar type of reduction or similar level of reduction, this could mean 40,000 people maybe don't end up back in prison again. Again, it's a correlation. It's not necessarily causation, but I think there's a pretty good strong argument to be made that getting people re-involved in society, can do a lot of good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess part of this really comes down to, the arguments really come down to the one side is this is a part of rehabilitation and getting people back into society and integrated into society is part of rehabilitation. And then the other side is, well, this is punishment and they shouldn't get this right back until they've finished their parole sentence.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the arguments boiled down to. So,
so they can have their physical freedom, but they can't have a voice.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying it's the argument. I'm not saying that it makes sense, but so I think I'll be voting yes on this because I think personally, everybody deserves a second chance, and as many people as possible should be able to participate in our elections. That's all I got.
All right. I'm reading more about it as you were talking here.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad. Is that engaging?
So it looks like there's effectively no money in opposition to this.
Not really, no. And it's also a pretty small amount of money.
It's about a $250,000 campaign. Or I'm sorry, they've expended $250,000, but they've still got $238 in reserve.
It should be more than that because the total contributions are north of $1 million. So the two largest contributors to this campaign are Patty Quillen, who, random fact, is married to Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix.
Oh, okay.
And then and she gave 250,000, and then Susan Pritzker 200,000, and then the ACLU 100,000.
Oh, okay.
And then a few other, some labor unions, some other, justice, some justice reform organizations, that kind of stuff. But I just thought it was interesting that basically Netflix contributed to this.
Yeah.
Or the wealth created by Netflix contributed to this.
All right. Well, I'm certainly voting for this as well. Just simply because I'm of the opinion that voting is an absolute right. I mean, we could even had discussions about whether or not prisoners should be allowed to vote, and I'd probably be for that as well. At least I've not put a lot of thought into it, but I'm that extreme, I guess, in my views on voting. Like, everybody should have a voice, because if you don't, then you're a second class citizen at that point in our system of government, and that's just an atrocious idea.
Well, and we've seen the impact on people of that over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could potentially be a microscopically small impact on the individual, but collectively, I think it's a measurable and regressive impact.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think I mean, one of the things I was very surprised was that our recidivism rate is twice as high as the state of Florida. So we're obviously doing something wrong, because there's very few places where you would imagine that Florida should be ahead of us. Sorry to any Floridians in the audience, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know the difference between the California and the Florida justice systems. Perhaps we allow people through the system faster, which might increase the recidivism rate, just in sheer numbers.
Well, I mean, I think what it basically means is we're doing less rehabilitation.
Yeah, potentially.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where you're going, right?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the factor. I'm just saying, like, there's probably lots of confounding variables in there.
Absolutely, it's not going to be one thing.
Yeah. It's probably the alligators. Now that I think about it, Florida has alligators, right? So
they're just, people are scared of them because they put them in the prisons.
Yeah, exactly.